Amazing snowstorm rescue. Days later, an unexpected billionaire changes this doctor's life forever. The storm raged outside like a furious beast, snow swirling and biting as Dr. Emily Carter clinched the steering wheel of her aging sedan. She was racing against time, her thoughts consumed with Mr. Thompson, her elderly patient whose heart condition had spiraled dangerously over the past few weeks. Every moment mattered. As the path became increasingly buried, dread seeped into her bones. What if she couldn't get to him in time? What if he needed her and she was too late? With each plow of her tires, she felt like she was wrestling with an unseen force, an urge pushing her to turn back. But retreating was never an option. Emily's mind raced, flooded with the weight of responsibility that had anchored her career for years. Sacrifice had become her constant companion, edging out her personal life. Loneliness carved deeper grooves into her heart as she thought of her cozy apartment, now just a shell of forgotten warmth. No suitors, no friends on speed dial, only the patients she poured herself into, hoping to mend the fabric of their lives. Not now, she whispered through clenched teeth, shaking her head to dispel the creeping negativity. Mr. Thompson was counting on her. The town had been facing challenges, no more so than amid this raging storm. Emily found herself trapped not just physically, but emotionally, caught in the eddy of a fading healthcare system. Fear gnawed at her gut, echoing the older man's weak voice as he reminded her about the dangers of abandonment. She pressed on, fighting the swirling snow that threatened her mission. She finally pulled up to the Thompson residence, her heart brimming with purpose, only to find her car caught in an icy grip. No, no! Panic surged through her as she assessed her new barrier. Outside, the wind howled its disapproval, mocking her as it whipped around her like a whirlwind. Through the haze of falling snow, a faint candle flickered in the window, a beacon to guide her through the dark. Gritting her teeth, Emily stepped outside, each stride met with an urgent determination that thrummed through her veins. This family needed her, and despair was not an option. She was more than just a doctor. She was their lifeline. Inside, chaos echoed. A mother held her trembling children, fear etched in her features, as despair loomed like a specter. The father lay bedridden, shivering under blankets that did little to quell the chill that wove through the flimsy walls. For days, Emily stayed, managing medication, dispelling fears, becoming a constant in their lives as the world outside lay frozen. For just a moment, everything felt right. Until a week later, the chaos of her own life crashed onto the scene. Word spread through the town that Ethan Reynolds, an elusive billionaire, had taken an interest in Emily's exceptional care for the Thompsons. Her heart thumped wildly as possibilities unfurled before her.
The recognition she had always longed for was finally within reach, a chance to reshape healthcare in her community, maybe even nationwide. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Yet this new path shrouded her in a swamp of conflicting loyalty, tethered to the community that molded her life. Could she embrace ambition without betraying her roots? Visions of success floated before her, but shadows of a past tragedy lurked like specters. A patient she couldn't save, a bureaucratic mishap that cost a life, loomed in her mind, magnifying her fears about who truly mattered in healthcare's ruthless realm. Would her leap into the spotlight tarnish her integrity? As she wrestled with these thoughts, a sense of crushing uncertainty settled over her. She gazed out into the snowy abyss, the very storm that had thrust her into an unforgiving choice. With heavy breath, she felt the storm within rise. Would her ambition cost her everything she held dear? Each looming decision carried the weight of 1,000 lives, and Emily was left wondering if the true calling of her heart was to seek personal success or continue to unflinchingly serve those who needed her most. Emily stood at the window, the storm still raging outside, reflecting the turmoil in her mind. She had never imagined a life where ambition danced seductively alongside her noble calling as a doctor. Now, however, the thought of Ethan Reynolds, his intentions unclear yet tantalizing, loomed over her every moment. Her phone vibrated, shattering the silence in the dimly lit room. It was a message from her mentor, Dr. Martinez, expressing admiration for her dedication. Mixed within that praise were undertones of caution, urging her to remain grounded amidst the whirlwind. The words etched themselves into her mind. Never lose your humanity in the pursuit of success. She clenched the device, contemplating their weight. What did it mean to be both a healer and an ambitious professional? The two roles seemed to tug at her, neither willing to concede. Each time she closed her eyes, her thoughts spiraled back to her past failure, an emergency call she couldn't meet, and the life she couldn't save. What if the world of privilege and influence turned her into a caricature of herself, cold and unfeeling? That evening, a text from a colleague reminded her of an upcoming meeting regarding healthcare funding.
It was an opportunity designed to attract potential investors and influencers in the medical field, with none other than Ethan expected to attend. It could be the chance to express the realities of the dwindling resources for practitioners like herself, but the mere thought of sharing the space with someone like him filled her with dread. Emily paced around her apartment, the shadows of her past wrestling with her present ambitions. She didn't want their voices to govern her willing heart. What was she willing to sacrifice for her evolution? Power? Integrity? The very essence that had guided her thus far? In the echoing silence, she decided to confront her impulses, to redefine success from within, instead of surrendering to external pressures. This could be an opportunity. If she could approach Ethan Reynolds not only to seek his resources, but also reveal the human stories behind them, wouldn't that be worth pursuing? With a surge of clarity, she began drafting her own manifesto. Words flowed like the litany of her daily thoughts. She envisioned her stand, a professional plea not for aid, but for real connections, keeping the heart of care at the forefront of her ambition. Perhaps this was her chance to harness their combined power, rewriting the narrative that had haunted her for years. Yet, as the words filled the blank page, uncertainty loomed like the tempest outside her door. Would he understand? Would her intentions be clear enough amidst the clamor of business interests? Could she maintain her integrity while standing before someone powerful enough to reshape her life? At the same time, a flicker of excitement began to bubble within her. Was she capable of igniting a change, navigating both the corridors of ambition and the essence of care? If Dr. Martinez were here, he might say that true growth is often found at the intersection of discomfort and courage. The clock ticked away, moments turning into decisions. She would confront her lingering doubts head-on, and in doing so, find out who she truly was, beyond the confines of the life she had built. As she slipped into her coat, adrenaline coursing through her, Emily felt the stirrings of resolve. Each heartbeat pulsed with new possibilities. She opened the door, a gust of cold air whipping through her, urging her forward into the storm outside. This time, she wouldn't shy away. No, the time had come to face this titan of industry, not as a subordinate, but as a contender in her own right. What awaited her in that meeting room filled with faceless suits and high-stakes ambitions? Would she seize this moment to redefine her legacy? Her breath came quick, filled with anticipation as she crossed the threshold toward the uncertainty lying ahead, unwilling to retreat again. As Emily entered the meeting room, a wave of anxiety washed over her. The open space buzzed with whispered conversations among the sharply dressed attendees, each face a facade molded by ambition. She felt small amidst the sea of power, yet today she was resolute. It was not just her clinical expertise that she intended to share, but a vision that intertwined healing with humanity. Taking a deep breath, Emily anchored herself. She had spent nights preparing her presentation, crafting a narrative of compassion enveloped in a plea for support. The flickering lights overhead mirrored her internal whirlwind, but she welcomed the discomfort. It was a necessary discomfort, one that propelled her toward growth. Ethan entered the room, his presence magnetic yet intimidating. As he mingled effortlessly, Emily felt the dissonance of their worlds. He embodied privilege, while she represented a more grounded reality. Their eyes met briefly. Something indefinable flickered in that gaze, but she pressed on, her focus sharp. She wasn't there to be intimidated. The meeting kicked off, and the corporate representatives detailed their plans for the funding initiative. Each statistic presented echoed the stark reality she faced daily, the lack of resources that constrained her ability to provide the best care. When it was her turn to speak, she could feel the collective gaze fixated on her like a spotlight. With a steady voice, she relayed her experiences, the rushed nights, the moments of despair when she'd faced loss, the profound joy of saving lives despite overwhelming odds. She emphasized the stories of patience over numbers. The room was silent, rapt attention hanging in the air. Would they see the essence of her appeal, the urgency, the humanity?
As she concluded, silence enveloped her again, this time laced with contemplation. Ethan leaned forward, his brow furrowing briefly before he spoke. What you mentioned about patient care, it's rare to find someone who conveys the heart of this profession so compellingly amidst the cacophony of profit margins. But how do you plan to bridge the gap between patients and investors? His question struck her heart, a cheeky challenge that nodded to the divide she was trying to overcome. A moment of doubt flicked through her mind. Was her message getting lost? But then she recalled Dr. Martinez's wisdom. With newfound confidence, Emily explained her vision for a collaborative model where investors and healthcare professionals work together, focusing on sustainability, not just profit. Investing in healthcare isn't merely transactional, she stated firmly. It's a commitment to our communities. It's about human life. We should create bridges, not walls. As she spoke, she could see Ethan nodding slightly, his interest piqued. The tension shifted subtly, igniting hope within her that her words were resonating. Then, unexpectedly, he raised a hand, signaling a pause. Let's talk after this meeting. I think we might be able to explore something more than funding. I'm intrigued by your approach, Emily, he said, his tone even.
Her heart raced, not just from the thrill of recognition, but from the realization that she had maintained her integrity in this encounter. She hadn't sold herself. Instead, she had carved out a space for her passion to coexist with ambition. After the meeting dissolved into small talk, Ethan approached her privately. There's something about your perspective that's not common among professionals wondering where their next funding comes from, he remarked. I think you could be a champion for a significant cause. Emily's mind raced with the possibilities. This could be her moment, a platform not just to connect resources, but to solidify her identity within the narrative of healthcare reform. As they discussed her ideas over drinks, the storm outside ceased to feel overwhelming. Instead, it represented the fierce winds of change she wished to harness. Yet beneath her growing excitement lay an undercurrent of concern. Would her principles withstand scrutiny in this world of wealth and power? The stakes were rising, and so was her resolve to hold firm. Emily, Ethan's tone shifted to something more serious as they wrapped up. You need to be prepared for what comes next. This isn't just a project, it's a commitment, and it can define your future. He stepped closer, an unreadable expression on his face. Are you ready for this? The gravity of his question pressed on her, reverberating through her earnest intentions. Had she truly grasped what lay ahead? Was she equipped for the challenges that would test her once more? More than ever, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt inside. As she left the meeting, the once familiar storm now felt like a gentle breeze. Uncertainty loomed, but mingled with a fierce anticipation. She was ready to navigate the intricacies of ambition intertwined with compassion. She was ready for the battle to preserve her integrity. But as she walked out, a thought lingered. Would she ultimately bend to the pressures of success, or emerge as the force of change she aspired to be? Emily could sense the winds of transformation stirring once more, both in her life and in the world around her. What kind of leader was she becoming, and at what cost? The answers awaited just beyond the horizon, challenging her once more to confront her deepest fears. The air felt charged with unspoken possibilities as Emily stepped into the cafe, a small yet bustling corner that buzzed with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The chaos of the meeting snippet echoed in her mind, but an element of clarity pierced through the uncertainty. It was time to face her ambitions head-on. The flickering neon sign outside delineated her two worlds, one of healing and compassion, the other of corporate intrigue and profit. As she approached the counter, she noticed her hands trembled slightly, a direct response to the high stakes of her new undertaking. Was she truly prepared to transform her vision into actionable strategies?
The stakes had been established, and now the narrative depended on her ability to maintain her values within this newfound arena of influence. She ordered her drink, the barista's casual smile grounding her momentarily. It reminded her of her patience, the stories she fought to tell. The memories flowed back to her, the laughter shared with kids in recovery, the gratitude from families who had navigated storms together. She knew there was a unique power in storytelling. It bridged worlds, connecting the light of care and the shadows of statistical documentation. Settling down at a corner table, Emily pulled out her laptop. Each keystroke allowed her to envision the model she had briefly discussed with Ethan. She wanted to create a robust framework that showcased how aligning healthcare investments with societal needs would ultimately bolster a community's health. But this would require more than lofty words. It needed tangible action. As she outlined her ideas, a hand touched her shoulder lightly. Emily looked up to find Ethan standing there, a cup of steaming coffee cradled in his hands. The casual setting contrasted sharply with the intensity of their previous encounter, yet the resolve in his eyes remained. "I figured I'd find you here," he said, sliding into the seat opposite her. "I want to dive deeper into what you envision. It's impressive, but we need a concrete plan if we're really going to appeal to potential investors." Emily nodded, a rush of excitement mingling with apprehension swirling in her gut. Here was Ethan, a pivotal player in a vast game she barely understood, and yet he was expressing genuine interest in her ideas. "I agree," she replied, her voice steadying as she concentrated. "I've imagined this model where healthcare providers and investors share both risks and rewards, funding the people instead of just the facilities." He listened, his brows furrowed in thought. "You'll have to anticipate their questions, show them how this model can yield returns, both financially and socially, make them see the urgency." She inhaled sharply. Would they be able to grasp the heart of her message? Could investors be made to understand that the real currency was not just money, but the lifeblood of the communities they served? The conversation flowed. They discussed logistical frameworks, potential partnerships, and even risk management strategies. Each idea she shared felt like a puzzle piece falling into place. She found herself unveiling insights she hadn't realized resided within her, hidden perhaps by the weight of uncertainty that had held her back. Yet, as they plotted the course ahead, a nagging doubt echoed in her mind. Would she lose herself, her ideological core, in the pursuit of aligning with these powerful figures? The internal struggle began to present moral dilemmas, haunting like shadows lurking at the edges of her ambition. "Emily," Ethan's voice broke through, pulling her back to the moment.
You're passionate about this, but understand the stakes. Success may mean you may face influences that could challenge your integrity. Are you ready for that? His words struck a chord, awakening that deep-rooted fear of compromise within her. She was charting the unknown, where the allure of success could twist her ideals. "I am ready to fight for it all," she asserted, her voice possessing an underlying edge of defiance. "But I won't buckle under pressure. My integrity is not for sale." A flicker of appreciation crossed Ethan's face, but uncertainty remained. "Just know that this isn't a journey without sacrifices. Are you willing to confront not just investors, but the entire system? It will challenge everything you believe." That single question hung between them, heavy and significant. Emily understood now. The journey ahead was not simply navigational, but transformative. The realization struck her. Her quest was about much more than funding. It was a test of identity, of values, and above all, purpose. As the warmth of the cafe enveloped them, a silent pact began to form. She would step into this anxious dance of ambition, poised to redefine her path within a system that had often felt alien. But would she unravel her own tapestry of ideals, or could she stitch it anew, creating a vibrant pattern of change amidst the corporate shadows? With a bold breath, Emily returned to her notes, the reckoning of her path clear. The ice had begun to crack beneath her, revealing not just a way forward, but the fool's gold of progress that lay ahead. Where would the crossroads lead her next, and would she earn the courage to not only step into the light, but also to wield it as a beacon of change? Emily leaned into her laptop, fingers dancing over the keyboard, the quiet hum of the cafe providing a soundtrack to the storm brewing in her mind. Ideas whirled like leaves caught in a windstorm. Each potential pathway intrigued her, but also terrified her. What if her vision failed? What if they rejected her proposals outright? She despised the thought of being the one that could not convince investors to see past their corporate greed and recognize the essence of what she was advocating. "Focus," she muttered under her breath, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She needed clarity. She turned her attention back to the screen. Words flowed better when she focused on drafting the mission statement: to elevate healthcare beyond its traditional confines by synergizing investor interests with community welfare. Each phrase she penned felt like a declaration, a promise to herself to stay true to her values while navigating the complexities of corporate financial ins and outs. "Are you always this serious?" Ethan's voice broke her concentration.
He chuckled, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed as he surveyed her. "It's easy to take it lightly when it doesn't impact lives directly," she shot back, a playful edge to her tone.
"I get it, but a little levity wouldn't hurt," he quipped. "This isn't only a corporate meeting. You're presenting a movement, or at least a pivot in how people perceive healthcare." "Yes," Emily agreed, "but it has to be grounded. If we only thrive on ideals, we risk leaving the very people we want to serve behind." As she spoke, a plan began to crystallize in her mind. She had an idea to integrate compelling narratives from her medical experience with empirical data. Investors often responded to concrete stories and outcomes. Perhaps she could compile case studies, anonymized of course, of her patients, showcasing tangible benefits from vetting healthcare expenditures more meaningfully. It was this storytelling backed by data approach she could use to transform brick-and-mortar healthcare into a narrative of necessity and hope. "Ethan, how feasible do you think it would be to create a compelling data set that illustrates the return on investment for funding patient success stories?" she asked, her heart racing slightly. "Difficult, sure, but doable," he replied after a moment's thought. "It would show that patient success directly correlates with community health metrics. If you can illustrate that crossover, investors will naturally recognize the financial incentive." She nodded, feeling validated. Perhaps this pathway offered a way not just to attract funding, but to access an audience's heart and mind simultaneously. The conversation shifted to logistics as they began mapping out how to pivot their focus for a pitch meeting scheduled a week later. Suddenly, a sharp reminder of the stakes loomed before her. "This meeting changes everything," she said, her tone serious. "I need to balance both empathy and numbers. I cannot compromise on compassion for profit." "You're a visionary," he said, the sincerity in his voice warming her resolve. "Just remember to wear that badge with pride when you walk into that boardroom. They're not just funding a proposal, they're supporting a vision." The next hour fell away in productive chaos. Plans were drafted, metrics discussed, and potential pitfalls dissected. Each word solidified her confidence, the tremors in her hands fading as she planned her ascent into unfamiliar territory. As they made their way out of the cafe, a sudden rush of anxiety coursed through her. Just before exiting, Emily paused, glancing back at the cozy atmosphere they were leaving behind. The stakes felt dangerously steep. What if she faltered in that meeting? Could it jeopardize everything she'd sacrificed to construct this bridge between medicine and business? "Hey, you've got this," Ethan voiced, fancying her moment of doubt. "It starts with one step. You've spent years caring for people. Just tell that story." The words struck deeper than a mere encouragement. Her journey had always been about serving humanity, never merely slinging figures. "Thanks, Ethan."
"I appreciate your support," she replied, the sentiment resonating within her. Yet as they stepped out into the bustling street, her thoughts raced uncontrollably. The impending boardroom felt like a crucible, a heat threatening to reshape her very essence. What might she have to surrender to merge her two worlds? The question loomed heavily as the horizon darkened with the approaching storm. Would she emerge as the change she sought, or would the grind of the corporate machine devour her essence? And so, amidst the burgeoning uncertainty, a new layer of determination forged within her. Emily turned to Ethan as they moved away from the cafe. "This isn't just a concept for me, it's my life's work. I won't let them steal that." Dominance and humanity were poised for their inevitable collision, but she would not let one eclipse the other. As a flicker of doubt crept into her mind, a moment of resolve anchored her spirit. The battle within had only just begun, and the path to her ambition would lead her into unknown territories. How far would she go to protect her vision, and who would challenge her on this transformative journey homeward into the light? The boardroom was colder than she had anticipated. Emily took a deliberate breath, steadying her nerves as she entered. The polished mahogany table shone beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, reflecting the expectations swirling in the air. She could hear muted conversations, investors exchanging wary glances. A potent mix of excitement and anxiety constricted her chest. Seated around the table were faces both unfamiliar and intimidating, business minds honed in the harsh realities of profit and loss, their expressions forged in years of financial scrutiny. Did they even understand the stakes as she did? This was more than a pitch. It was the manifestation of her years of toil, the distilled essence of her vision. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steadying as she clasped her hands together. The room quieted, eyes narrowed, some scribbling notes, while others leaned back, preparing for the dance of persuasion. This was her stage, her moment, yet each heart-stopping tick of the clock reminded her of their positions, potential allies or fierce gatekeepers. She launched into her narrative, weaving together the stark realities of the healthcare system and personal tales that would draw on their emotions. She spoke of patients not merely as statistics, but as real people. Maya, a single mother struggling against the odds, and Tom, an elderly veteran battling chronic illness. Their journeys were welcome guests in her argument, grounding her ideals in palpable realities. Yet as she shared these stories, the doubt that had accompanied her stepped softly into the forefront of her mind. What if they dismissed her stories as emotional appeals lacking solid empirical backing? She had explicitly suggested planting the seeds of empathy in their decision process, but was that enough?
As she transitioned into the data, her pulse quickened. Charts displaying patient outcomes flashed on the screen, illuminating the stark successes they've achieved through meaningful investment and compassionate care. These numbers aren't mere figures, she asserted passionately. They represent lives saved and communities uplifted. When we invest in health and well-being, we reap benefits far beyond financial returns. Yet a voice interjected, brushing against her confidence like an unexpected chill. "But Emily," one of the investors said, an eyebrow arching critically, "isn't this just a humanistic approach cloaked in financial jargon? How can you guarantee that these stories correlate with hard cash?" The question sliced through her heart, but she fought to regain her composure. This isn't just a promise of compassion, it's about understanding the market. Patients like Maya and Tom eventually lead to better community health metrics. Healthier people equal reduced expenses for insurers and investors alike. She could feel Ethan's gaze at the back of her room, an anchor pulling her back from the tumultuous waters of doubt, reminding her of her mission. His steadfast belief in her capabilities rekindled her resolve. "Investors often view healthcare merely as a transaction," she continued, galvanizing her words with renewed vigor. "But what if we leap beyond transactions and view these individuals as facets of a larger ecosystem? Improved health outcomes create robust economic viability, generating profits while uplifting lives. It doesn't have to be either or. Compassion can drive financial stability." She scanned the room, noticing the subtle shifts in their body language. Some took notes while others shifted slightly, intrigued. A glimmer of hope ignited within her. Was it possible that she was breaking through the veil of skepticism? After what felt like an eternity of deliberation, another investor leaned in, their voice a dynamic contrast to the stony demeanor they had maintained. "Let me play devil's advocate," he mused. "What if you're met with failure? What's your plan then?" The question hung like a guillotine, ready to sever her aspirations from reality. She could feel the weight of 1,000 potential failures crashing over her, but this was her moment to respond, her moment of truth. "Failure, as unsettling as it is part of the journey," she said, her voice unwavering. "Every day in healthcare is laced with challenges. I've stood at the forefront of struggle and resistance, and from that vantage, I've learned that resilience is born from vision. I will adapt, pivot, and lean into every lesson, because my commitment isn't restricted to a proposal, it's a lifelong mission." The silence that followed was tangible, stretching across the room as each investor absorbed her fervor.
Emily dared to hope they understood that perhaps she had found common ground and encouraged the fusion of their traditional approaches with her revolutionary vision. But just as the realization dawned that she might have initiated a spark, another investor's voice shattered the moment. "What happens when your ideals hit the reality of our investors' numbers? We need assurances, tangible outcomes. Convince us." Her heart raced anew. Did they get it? Or would they pull the rug from underneath in the pursuit of cold, hard cash? As she tuned into her instincts, the path toward coherence between healing and financial viability became a labyrinth before her. Emily felt the walls of expectations closing in, amplifying a profound sense of urgency. Would she continue to battle for her beliefs, or would the corporate machine demand total compliance? The answer loomed, just as the future of her vision dangled delicately in the air. And just as she prepared her retort, the meeting's energy shifted again. The door creaked open, and another voice entered the fray. "I apologize for interrupting," said a figure whose aura instantly commanded attention, "but I can't help but be intrigued by this." All eyes turned toward this unexpected newcomer, curiosity quickly replacing skepticism as they awaited his intentions. Who was this mysterious figure, and what impact would he wield over the very essence of her vision? A figure stepped into the room, dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit. His presence was immediately magnetic, drawing attention away from the tense atmosphere that had just filled the air with perilous uncertainty. Emily felt her pulse quicken, not out of fear, but with the spark of unexpected opportunity igniting inside her. "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Adrian Hayes, and I've been observing your presentation with great interest.
the newcomer said, his voice warm but authoritative. Adrian exuded a charisma that would likely draw even the most hardened investors into dialogue. Emily sensed a shift in the energy. The tension seemed to dissipate slightly. "Your stories, Emily," he continued, "they resonate deeply with all the right sentiments. We know that health projects can yield profitability, though the challenge often lies in translating idealism into tangible results." His gaze, piercing yet inviting, held within it a promise, perhaps an alliance, or even hope. The investors looked at one another, their skepticism temporarily abated. Emily clenched her jaw. Would Adrian become an ally or a wolf in sheep's clothing? Her instincts urged caution. Trust was a delicate currency in a boardroom filled with pragmatists. "I appreciate your support," she managed, forcing herself to maintain eye contact with Adrian, grounding herself in the moment. "But it's also crucial to show these stakeholders a clear path, financial projections, metrics that may guide their decision-making."
Metrics are important, of course, Adrian said, nodding. But don't underestimate the power of the narrative. People connect with stories, especially the ones that speak to their morals. If you can weave a financial narrative that aligns with your compassionate vision, you might find an ally among those who think differently. Her mind raced. A financial narrative? Could she adapt her approach, blending the emotional currency with data-driven substance? This wasn't merely about having data points. It was about framing them in a way that reflected not just profitability, but the deep ethical impact of healthcare choices. "Let's not forget," she countered, feeling the urge to assert her perspective, "that in this industry, ethics and empathy may not always be priorities. I need to provide assurances to these investors that my plan would not only support those in need, but also yield a return." Adrian's expression softened, and behind the business facade, she glimpsed a layer of understanding that seemed almost rare among the group. "Precisely," he said. "Perhaps we can collaborate on aligning the humanitarian goals with financial objectives, showing them that the two aren't mutually exclusive. Instead, they can define a new way to approach healthcare innovation." Excitement surged inside Emily. It was a revelation that could shift the entire focus of her presentation. With Adrian's insights, she envisioned intertwining hard data with expansive empathy, creating a tapestry of hope and pragmatism that investors wouldn't be able to ignore. There was no denying that the stakes had risen significantly. If Adrian became part of this venture, she had to ensure he understood not only the financial expectations, but also the mission at its core, the lives that depended on their success. The atmosphere, fueled by renewed vigor, surrounded her as she gathered her thoughts to guide the conversation. "If we could secure a partnership that highlights success stories alongside financial projections, we may unlock the essence of this initiative," she proposed. "It's about shining a light on the tangible human impact, while strategically honing in on profitability." "Right," Adrian replied, an appreciative smile breaking across his face. "Let's showcase the business case as the ultimate win-win scenario." As plans unfolded, Emily felt her confidence spike. The tension in her mind transformed into excitement as ideas raced, combining compelling narratives with statistics and employing his negotiating skills to elevate the proposal. Each new thought surged with promise, displaying the path ahead, a confluence of tender ambition and financial strategy. But just as she envisioned executing this transformed strategy, the initial investor who had questioned her earlier interjected again. "And who exactly backs this newly formed alliance? What guarantees do we have that this isn't just another flashy presentation lacking solid commitment?"
Emily's heart raced again. The moment had evolved. The doubts rippled through the air once more as the shadows of uncertainty gathered around Adrian. Was he the ally she hoped for, or would skepticism overrule belief once again? As the tension thickened in the room, she prepared to confront this challenge, aware that her journey was defined not only by her vision, but by the formidable crossroads of trust, partnership, and the relentless pursuit of those dreams. "Adrian, what can we convey to solidify their faith in you?" she asked, her voice steadying once more. The weight of anticipation hovered as they awaited his response. She needed to know if he would stand by her side against the rising tide of doubt. Emily deeply desired to uncover if this was her moment of transformation or just another step into the unknown. But one thing was clear. She stood on the edge of her most significant decision yet. How far could she stretch herself before the fabric of her aspirations began to tear?
Adrian fixed his gaze on the skeptical investor, the tension thick in the room as Emily's heart pulsated with a mix of hope and apprehension. He took a deep breath, exuding a calm that seemed infectious. "What I can provide," Adrian spoke deliberately, "is not merely an endorsement, but a commitment grounded in proven results. I have personally spearheaded initiatives that transformed overlooked projects into thriving endeavors. This isn't just a partnership, it's a mission rooted in credibility." Emily watched closely, sensing a pivotal moment unfolding. Adrian was setting the stage, providing her a chance to build on the foundation he laid. Yet doubt still lingered in the air. Would the investors truly buy into this narrative? "And how can we prove this track record to them?" she pressed, her voice firm, but laced with an undercurrent of urgency. If they were to leverage Adrian's reputation, they needed tangible evidence. "I propose we compile a portfolio of case studies," Adrian suggested thoughtfully. "Real projects showcasing not only the financial growth achieved, but the genuine lives impacted as a result. This tapestries of success can serve as the keystones of our presentation, illustrating the synergy of compassion and profit." Emily felt the rush of adrenaline in her veins, a spark igniting within. "Yes," she replied quickly, her mind racing. "I could weave together the stories from our early beneficiaries, reinforcing the emotional depth along with statistical outcomes." The path was becoming clearer, yet a lingering question crept in. How would she handle the personal stakes involved, as those narratives laid bare her vulnerabilities? The investors exchanged glances, revealing a mixture of interest and skepticism. Adrian, not missing a beat, leaned forward slightly, digging deeper. "And let's emphasize Emily's role in these successes.
Her vision has already driven positive results. It's imperative they understand the passion behind the mission isn't just a business strategy, but a calling." As the conversation evolved, pieces clicked together in Emily's mind, yet she couldn't shake off the gnawing unease. Would they truly understand her motives? "I'm concerned about how my intentions might be perceived. I have to communicate that profit isn't the sole outcome. The humanity behind it deserves the spotlight too." Authenticity resonates. Adrian's voice carried conviction. "You must share your personal connection to this mission. People gravitate towards purpose. Unveil your story. Let your passion guide the narrative." A swirl of emotions flooded Emily as the weight of that idea settled. She had always focused on the numbers, the metrics, the growth rate. But the real difference came from a rare and emotional investment in each story. The sleepless nights spent thinking about the lives touched by the very initiatives that were now hanging by a thread in this room. "I can do that," she declared, a surge of determination replacing her apprehension. "My journey hasn't been smooth. I've faced countless hurdles. I can articulate how consequence and care intertwine in this project." The investors stirred again, some visibly intrigued. The notion of personal stakes shifted the atmosphere, but Emily felt a burgeoning sense of vulnerability. Would sharing her story weaken her credibility or bolster it? It was a gamble that could either win over the room or deepen their skepticism. "Prepare to commit to this narrative," Adrian advised gently, sensing her internal conflict. "But remember, you also need to ready yourself for the scrutiny this honesty demands." Emily nodded, steeling herself. She had never been one to shy away from challenges. This venture demanded both courage and clarity. The intersection of her personal and professional identities stood in stark contrast, each driving force feeding the other. As they began to outline the next steps, Emily's mind reeled with thoughts of how to frame this presentation, but uncertainty flickered. Was she prepared to truly share her journey amidst the pressure of expectations? The meeting progressed, and as she engaged with Adrian and the investors, a silence echoed in her thoughts. The moment felt both exhilarating and daunting, a moment where possibilities danced just out of reach. With the outline taking shape, Emily wrestled with the realization that to truly open doors, she would need to bear not just her ambition, but her soul. Was this the metamorphosis she sought? The shape-shifting from a project leader to an impactful advocate, using her wounds as the canvas for credibility? The first tremor of realization crashed upon her as Adrian turned to her. "You're on the brink of a transformational journey. Are you ready to leap into this unknown territory?"
The weight of his question lingered heavily, prompting her to consider her readiness to embrace vulnerability while maintaining her aspirations. As doubts surged within her, Emily recognized this crossroads would chart the course for her career and sense of purpose. Was she prepared to embrace the storm? Curiosity intertwined with dread. There, in that moment, she understood. She was staring into the abyss of her own potential.
Would she dive deeper? Or would she step back into comfortable, familiar shadows? The answer lay ahead, and Emily could feel the wave rolling in, carrying both opportunity and trepidation. Adrian's words lingered in Emily's mind, echoing back to her as the meeting wrapped up. She felt cornered between the exhilaration of the opportunity and the weight of her own insecurities. As the investors filed out, she caught sight of Adrian, who offered her an encouraging nod. That gesture, simple yet profound, grounded her amid the swirling doubts. The evening air outside felt crisp against her skin, invigorating yet laden with the reality of the day's events. Walking back to her car, she replayed every moment in her mind, the way Adrian had shifted the conversation in her favor, how her narrative had shifted from data to destiny. But the thought of sharing her personal story still made her cringe. Instinctively, she questioned if such vulnerability would cost her credibility. Back in her small yet chaotic office, piles of research and reports haphazardly stacked on the desk, she slumped into her chair. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, illuminating a space filled with dreams and doubts alike. Emily knew the stakes. This wasn't merely about securing funding. It was about building a legacy grounded in passion, purpose, and authenticity. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes to focus. The faces of those beneficiaries, their struggles, triumphs, and gratitude flooded her thoughts. Each represented a chapter of her journey, a testament not to her success, but to her commitment to make a difference. If she could weave those personal experiences into her pitch, perhaps the investors would understand the impact she envisioned. Could I really do it? She wondered aloud. Recognizing the weakness in her resolve, she reached for a notepad. It was time to write, an exercise in unearthing her story. Hours passed, and with each scribbled word, Emily unearthed memories she had kept buried beneath ambition and fear. She recalled the late nights spent working alongside those whom society had forgotten. She remembered the tears shed with mothers struggling to provide for their children, and the laughter shared upon witnessing the transformation of their lives. The depth of human connection revealed itself in every sentence, reigniting her purpose. Yet self-doubt periodically reared its head. The fear of being misunderstood loomed large. What if the investors only saw her passion as weakness?
If they scrutinized her failures rather than celebrating her resilience, would it all crumble before her? The thought made her shudder. She was on the verge of baring her soul, and the stakes felt monumental. As the hours dwindled, Emily's resolve hardened. This was not merely a narrative. It was a bridge to greater understanding. She needed to ground her emotional experiences with solid metrics, showcasing how passion and results could coexist. Suddenly, her phone vibrated, breaking her concentration. It was Adrian. "How's the personal story coming along? Remember, authenticity can be your strongest asset." With a surge of gratitude mingled with excitement, she realized her next move. She needed to reach out, not only to Adrian, but also to the individuals who had walked the path with her. How had this journey been viewed through their eyes? What stories would punctuate her narrative? The idea lit a fire within her. She quickly texted Adrian back. "Need to interview former beneficiaries. I want their voices in my presentation. Could we meet to discuss tomorrow?" After a brief moment, his reply came back. "Absolutely. Let's make it powerful together." As she prepared for bed, Emily felt a sense of urgency dawning. She was ready to step into the arena, vulnerable yet emboldened by the unwavering belief that her story was worthy. But beneath this newfound strength lay a paralyzing thread of trepidation. What if the very act of storytelling spiraled toward unintended consequences? A huge risk was ahead. The next day could bring clarity or chaos, with her poised to confront what she had long avoided, an honest reflection of her struggles and triumphs. Her heart raced at the thought, carrying her into a realm where vulnerability met strength. It was now or never. Faced with this pivotal crossroads, Emily wondered again if she was truly prepared for the ocean of emotion awaiting her. Would her narrative resonate, or would it ruin her carefully curated facade? An unsettling tension filled the room as she drifted to sleep, leaving only one pressing question. What awaited her on the other side of her self-revelation? As the sun rose, casting a warm glow into Emily's vibrant yet cluttered space, clarity began to settle around her. Each ray seemed to beckon her to step into her truth, a truth that not only represented her journey as a doctor, but the many lives that had shaped her into who she was today. Refueling herself with a strong cup of coffee, Emily gathered her materials for the meeting with Adrian. She glanced at the notes she had scribbled from her late-night revelations, each word now a call to arms. She had decided that sharing her personal journey was not an act of weakness, but a compelling testament to her unwavering commitment to the field of healthcare.
Arriving at the meeting cafe half an hour early, anticipation coursed through her veins. Adrian arrived promptly, a knowing smile on his face.
"Looks like someone is ready to unleash a powerful narrative," he observed, settling down at the table. "I am," she replied, a glint of determination igniting within her. "I want to integrate the stories of those I've served. Their voices need to resonate in this pitch. This isn't solely my journey. It's about community resilience." "Exactly," Adrian exclaimed enthusiastically. "Let's frame it as a journey of healing, not just statistics. We'll showcase the transformation, which still holds its power, especially when tethered to tangible data." In that moment, Emily felt the weight of purpose align in her heart. Together, they began constructing an outline that wove together captivating testimonials and robust data analytics. They discussed stories from her practice, how one patient, a single father named Marcus, had battled chronic pain for years, but had turned his life around with support and medical intervention, reclaiming his role as both provider and active member of the community. "I can reach out to Marcus," she suggested, feeling their connection woven with genuine care. "His story can highlight not just the impact on his health, but how he's giving back to his children and the community." "Perfect," Adrian agreed, scribbling notes. "Each story should punctuate the need for support and prove investment pays deeper dividends. Let's ensure there's a theme of hope that threaded through, something that compels the investors to engage with passion rather than merely see raw numbers." As they collaborated, Emily felt her confidence swell. She was not just selling a project, she was advocating for humanity within an often uncaring system. If she could reclaim her narrative, she could demonstrate the intrinsic value that existed beyond the transactional nature of investments. Days passed, and with each passing hour, Emily reached out to former patients. The conversations were cathartic. Each interaction reaffirmed her intrinsic motivation to merge healthcare and compassion. Marcus, alongside others, offered vibrant insights that lit up her path to the presentation. Finally, the day she had been both longing for and dreading arrived. Standing in the same boardroom where doubt had once clouded her mind, Emily felt a new resolve overcome her. She was armed with personal testimonials, vivid narratives encompassing the spectrum of healing, and the profound human connections that fueled her passion. With Adrian at her side, she launched into her presentation, her voice steady and unwavering. As she introduced the tale of Marcus, she saw flickers of interest on the investors' faces. She emphasized the reawakening of a father's commitment to his children, framing it against statistics about community healing, demonstrating that healthy lives translated into thriving neighborhoods. Throughout her talk, she interlaced hard data with heartfelt appeals for investment, which showcased the human improvement that funding could facilitate.
Empathy and analytics danced together seamlessly, revealing a new way of thinking about healthcare, a realm where human dignity was paramount. As she painted the picture of hope, at the meeting's conclusion, silence enveloped the space. For a heartbeat, doubt washed over her. Had she truly connected? But then Adrian spoke. "Emily's unique approach intertwines humanity with feasibility. You'll find that investing in care elevates profit margins and community health alike." At that moment, awareness dawned in the room, shifting the atmosphere from skepticism to possibility. Investors began nodding, and questions poured in about implementation and collaboration, but this time she was ready. Hours later, once the meeting concluded and they retreated to a quiet corner, Emily felt buoyed by the exhilaration of accomplishment, the fears that had burdened her dissipating like fog under the sun. Adrian turned to her, an impressed grin plastered on his face. "You nailed it. You brought the heart of the message forward." Her heart raced with satisfaction. She had turned vulnerability into strength, and in doing so, she had stepped into her own narrative of resilience, proving that her voice mattered. Weeks later, as funding began to materialize, Emily received calls from investors looking to support her model, eager to invest in both healthcare and community welfare. Empowered by newfound confidence, she navigated these discussions on her terms, unwilling to compromise on integrity. With each successful collaboration, she felt the distance between her professional ambitions and heartfelt calling diminish. No longer merely a doctor, she had become an advocate shaping healthcare systems, addressing the systemic injustices while maintaining her humanity at the forefront of it all. As she walked through her hospital's corridors, a sense of fulfillment wrapped around her. She had conquered not just the skepticism surrounding her work, but it also solidified her identity as a healer and a visionary. Whether it was the pulse of compassion felt in her hands or the analytical lens guiding her decisions, she was complete. Emily had transformed. She was no longer standing on the precipice of choice. She had leapt, soaring into a future rich with promise, redefined by her experiences, and truly impacted by every life she touched. Now was her time. Armed with stories and driven by purpose, Emily had achieved what she had once believed was impossible. It was now her responsibility to invoke change and ignite hope, embodying the very essence of the profession she loved. This wasn't just a story of a doctor. It was the evolution of a leader committing herself to a future where compassion thrives alongside ambition. Emily had found her balance, and in doing so, she had unwittingly started a revolution, not only within the healthcare system, but within herself. Her journey was just beginning, but she knew she wouldn't be alone anymore.
You need to subscribe now to witness more tales of extraordinary transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and spread these inspiring stories. Comment your thoughts and speculate on Emily's next move. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion.